Welcome to the Black Hills Small Business Podcast. I'm Tristan Emond with Mindful Living Realty.
And I'm Angelia Dale with Gateway Mortgage. Join us as we sit down with Black Hills small business owners, learn about their businesses, and tell their stories.
We're doing it now on the Black Hills Small Business Podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome to the podcast. Here we are today with Dr. Nick Krysl with Westside Chiropractic. Nick, thanks for being with us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit just about you, your personal life, your family here in Rapid City.
Okay. So I originally grew up on a ranch out in Nebraska and did my undergraduate in Kearney, Nebraska. So grew up in the Nebraska area, traveled around a little bit. Met my wife. She was going to Chadron State. And so we moved up to Minnesota, Bloomington, Minnesota, to go to chiropractic school. So I did 3.5 years there at Bloomington, or at Northwestern Chiropractic College, and then moved to Scottsbluff, Nebraska, and started a practice there at Will's Chiropractic. I was there for about a year, and then saw an opportunity here to move back to my wife's home. She's originally from the Black Hills. My sister is a PA here in town as well with medical arts. And so it was just a good opportunity to move back. Her family's here, my only sister is here, and then we raised 3 kids here. So my oldest, Annalyn, is 13 now, Riker is 11, and Callan is 8. And they all have a birthday in the same week. So it's birthday week. Try to remember they're all their ages. It all changes on the fly. So we moved up here. I purchased this practice in 2010. So I've been here for, 13 years and some change.
Yeah. So tell us about your practice in general, what your philosophy in your practice, what you provide here, what services you provide.
Okay. So more of a general family chiropractic center. So we treat a lot of sports, a lot of extremities, but just kind of the whole thing. So everything from spine to hormone stuff to injury, inflammation, gut, do a lot of gut work, a lot of cleansing, just different things. Don't get into a lot of modalities, but have, traction tables and stem and ultrasound. Kind of a technique guy. I grew up on a ranch, like I said earlier, in Nebraska. If you can't learn how to do something quickly, things are not going to go real well around the ranch. So that mentality was easy to transfer into my business, into different specialties. So I do upper cervical, Thompson drop. I do activator and impulse, do SOT, do diversified Gonstead, just a whole list of different techniques because people kind of go in patterns, but they require certain techniques. So do some curve work, do some postural work, just whatever their needs are. So it's been a good fit. We see a lot of people from a long distance away. We see a lot of people from eastern side over the river, northern side, a lot of people from North Dakota, Wyoming, a few from Colorado, a few from Nebraska. I'd say a good third or more of our business is way out of town. Wow. So people travel looking for certain techniques, certain skill set or ideology. So
Yeah, because there's some things in there that I had no idea about, like what you do as a chiropractor.
Yeah, and
gut work.
I would say that's probably the biggest misconception in our field is that we were broadly trained. I went to Northwestern, like I mentioned earlier. That college is more geared around the principles of science. They have a lot of philosophy yet in it, but it's not strict in its philosophy. And that was what I chose. I can't say that either one of them is right or wrong. Research shows that there is no superior technique out there. It's whatever the physician's good at. Some people, they do energy work. Some do massive manual adjustments. Some do drop tables and integrators and activators and impulses. And there's just a wide array of techniques out there, torque release technique, TRTs, things like this that benefit some people and not others. So to say that one is more superior over the other is just not true.
Yeah, my wife's family has a number of different chiropractors in her family, so I've kind of been exposed to that, and they do things a lot differently than you do, and I've seen a lot of different people do different chiropractic work differently. I've been seeing you for 4 years now, every other week.
Yeah.
always be able to adjust me. His family always sits there. I think I got a plaque in your wall, right?
Maybe not at the beginning, man. Your back was so tight that it was just like I had to do body slams on Tristan. It was awful.
Wow. See,
But upper back
over
over time
Yeah.
has now come to the point where we don't have to do all that tight muscle work and heavy thoracic work and rib manipulation. So it's been good.
My wife lately has had her stomach go out of place a lot, which is interesting. But Nick always just comes in and he's taught me how to do it, but I can never do it just right.
So I didn't realize your stomach.
Oh yeah.
Well, the fundus of the stomach can travel up through the diaphragm,
Yeah.
and if you get kind of a locking fixation or fibrous tissue along that diaphragm line, you'll get what's called a hiatal hernia. Is it a true hiatal where it's all the way through the fundus? No, but it's fixated there, so they get acid reflux, they get nausea, they'll have IBS symptoms. So you can simply pull that down with breath work and free that stomach away from that diaphragm. Same thing can be done with the liver. Same thing can be done with other areas of the body. So large intestine.
More chiropractic isn't just cracking.
Yeah, and
right.
people ask me all the time because I have a lot of young chiropractors or chiropractors to be come into my practice. They're trying to figure out where do I learn this stuff from, and like what school should I go through, and I'm sure the schools might not want to hear this, but you're not going to find that stuff in school. You're going to find it out in the field.
Practices, yeah.
You're going to have to get out there and meet these people. Now, did I find a lot of these gurus through school? Yes, I did. So it was that door that opened that gave me the opportunity to find these people.
Right.
So is this information, like your website kind of breaks down these types of different practices? Because for me, I would okay, there's a chiropractor, like I said, just thinking cracking my back, but being able to kind of dive into
to read that
deeper. Yeah.
So what I've found, and many might disagree with that, is that my best referrals are from individuals,
Clients.
not from the website. People that are looking, searching, they're in a different mode in their life. They're chronically searching. They're looking for something to just have an instant change for them.
Yeah,
they haven't
that's
really
right.
committed to finding their specific problem and dealing with it.
Right.
So when I have somebody come from Google, chances are they're going to come in and they're going to leave, and they're not going to stay real long. Some do, but majority of them don't. So I don't spend a lot of time and effort and mind space on that premise of like, I want to try to attract more people through Google.
Well, and for me, being able to see it out there in regards to like, oh, this is because, if I would have been here, it's like, oh, hey, I'm standing up.
Right? And it's that word of mouth that
Yeah.
people get really excited about,
You should go see Dr.
just like we're doing right now,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
We're trying to create a relationship. We're trying to create rapport with each other. And we're trying to show what we know to be helpful. And sometimes reading it online can be misleading, as we've all found here lately, that online information sometimes isn't that accurate.
Right. Even just this face-to-face, whether it be the video, whether it be the voice, there's so much more that you can present.
Oh, read body
than
language
you
is
can,
huge.
everyone. So yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us your story. What made you just wake up one day and say, "Hey, I'm going to be a chiropractor now"? 'Cause
Right.
I like beating people up. Or
Yeah, great question. Every chiropractor has an experience in their life. One that was kind of that hallmark thing. So me personally, my father had a back injury that he was, supposed to have surgery on or was an option on. But it was in the 80s and 90s, and there was not a lot of extra money, and there wasn't a lot of skill set in that area. And so one of the physicians said, "Hey, why don't you go to see a chiropractor?" Oh, what's a chiropractor? All right, so I go with my dad and this little kid, and we come in, and he lays him on the table and checks his spine and motions and looks at his posture, and he says, "You need an adjustment." So he adjusts his L4, and he does this 3 or 4 times, and my dad's pain just goes away. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I think my dad loved it more than I did at the time, because you're a young kid, like, I don't know what I want to do. I want to fly airplanes, or I want to be a professional, basketball player. And he's just like, man, that just changed my life. And to this day, my dad's back, like on X-ray, is beautiful. And he's a rancher. Right? He lifts heavy stuff all the time. He's swinging a hammer. He's using a pry bar. He's bouncing around on tractors. I mean, his back should look terrible. But with that chiropractic lifestyle, he's chosen, better choices in his life. They eat better food. I'm constantly always sending them, some new supplement. We're talking about mind space. We're talking about, energy and exercise. And they are 63, on no medications, and in, for lack of better words, perfect health. And I attribute that kind of all of that first adjustment. So
where
I was just,
started.
yeah, it was a different feeling, of just like, there's something else out there. There's 3 trillion processes in the body per second. The body is just constantly doing stuff. And consciously, we think we have some ability to regulate and control those 3 trillion processes. And I think that's what makes chiropractic so unique, is that it's a therapy that you can go in and get and walk out. And all that's already happening. It creates your body's ability to have a neuroplastic change. And that's the secret behind chiropractic. It's not so much about setting a bone perfect, or releasing restrictions or whatever it may be, but it's about stimulating the body kind of like a keyboard, and playing that keyboard, that beautiful music, back to the brain to tell the body to have an adaptation to its environment. And that's neuroplasticity. That's really where it's at. So that's why a drop works, an activator works, a manual adjustment works, laying of hands, throwing acupuncture needles, all these things, massage, because it's having a stimulation on the body's outside to tell the brain to adapt. I mean, if we see that plant over there in the corner wilting, you don't think of like, what medication does it need? Like, it probably needs some water and some sunlight, right? It needs to adapt to its environment.
It's a very good analogy, because it was like, okay, let's throw all the medication at it, possibly. It's like, okay, no, let's see how we can.
So I talk with a lot of medical physicians, because they're always interested in our philosophy, because it's a different paradigm. It has a different approach. One, we have a different population of people, for sure. They're actively searching to take care of themselves.
Yep.
That's a different paradigm. It's not your normal, I have a problem, you need to fix it, right? And so there's no active involvement of that patient's individual health. So if they do go into a medical doctor and they say, hey, I'm having heart palpitations, fix it. Well, what's wrong? Well, my lipids are through the roof, my hormone panels are crap, I eat garbage every day and I don't get off the couch. And I'm going to give you a pill and have expectations for that to fix it. So it's not that medicine is doing anything wrong. We just have to find a different way to communicate to patients and have them get involved in their health care.
Because I read the other day, it's like our bodies every 7 years through cycling and things like that, we're kind of reborn.
Yeah, every cell is replaced,
Yeah.
right? Minus neurons and cardiac tissue, right?
It's like,
Yep.
Should be a young spring chicken by now.
Well, it's that adaptation. Well, now we're going to fall off into a whole other well, right? We're going to talk about oxidative stress and how the body inflames and how it has that time clock, right, called telomere destruction. So our DNA replication. So how does oxidative stress affect our telomeres, our length of our chain, to create an oxidative stress that increases our aging factor?
I understood that.
Right? So our body is running and it replicates, like you said.
Yeah.
It replicates our cells, but unfortunately we lose a little tail end of our DNA every time it replicates.
Oh.
But the more we're inflamed or oxidatively stressed, it takes a bigger chunk. So that's why some
Which is
people
why he likes me
age
when I come back from vacation.
super fast. Yeah. Yeah.
Relax.
Tell me to stop stressing myself.
We've
I'm like,
all
I'm trying
seen
not
those, people that come into our life and you're like, that guy's 70 years old. And then you're looking like, 52. Oh, what is he doing, right?
Yeah.
And we've all seen those that are like, man, you're probably 65, and they're like 82, and you're like, how is that possible? What are you doing? And I always ask them, like, what is your secret to life? And it seems like every one of them say, well, I'm happy, I exercise, I drink water, I have fun, and I try to eat good. And that's their formula, which just, I love it, because I'm like, yeah, that's the chiropractic lifestyle.
Nice.
It's like, keep in motion, keep your body clean, meditate, control your thoughts, keep that mind space, switch that brain on.
Well, I'm signing up already, so.
It's kind of fun.
He's got you. He's got you
My
right.
husband, my son, get work on it.
Yeah.
I mean, we do most of those things, but again, you also, it's like, okay, do I have to go to the chiropractor? Like, I think you said you would go every week?
Every other week.
Every other week, kind of thing. And it's like, well, okay, and
And
that's
usually
maybe a
when I get here, I'm like,
misconception.
please help me out.
Yeah, I was like, okay, you have to go, or like, okay, now we're continuing, we have to go do this, and like for us, like, okay, do we need this? But, it does sound like like a lifestyle that kind of thing that you have to incorporate.
Well, I guess the question I always ask patients is, what do they want?
Yeah.
Right? My job is to meet them where they want to be. If they want to do all these things, we can do all that. We just got to figure out how we can incorporate it into your lifestyle and make it a process. Because you can take every supplement on my wall, and I'm not going to tell you you're going to be any healthier.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
need to
you have
find
to.
what you need, and then how do you utilize it and when, right?
Oh,
And the same thing, like getting adjusted, some patients, their adaptation is lower, and so they got to be adjusted more. And then some don't. I've never found that there was any secret recipe to getting adjusted. I simply look at it as, this is my way of producing an adaptive process in your body. Should you get adjusted every day? Probably, right?
Well, as much as we're
Right?
knocked out of place.
And what is it? Is it a bone out of place, or is it a restriction, or is it, we go to the next thing, is it just stimulating adaptation, not even worrying about the adjustment, but to play that keyboard, just like doing yoga every day. If you talk to people that do yoga, they're pretty healthy,
Yeah,
right?
huge difference there.
But what goes with yoga,
Yeah.
right? There's certain things that they do on a daily basis because they only stretch for like 15 minutes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but it's the eating, and like I said, it's the
lifestyle.
state of mind.
Yeah, so it was
Yeah.
what they incorporated in the process that changed their life. It wasn't so much that it was they did 15 minutes of yoga, because I did 15 minutes on the treadmill yesterday, and my calves are stupid tight because I had it cranked up too much. So was my 15 minutes harmful to me, or was it, it just created a different adaptation, so.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I think it's a different mindset though, because like when I'm like, oh, I have to, my neck hurts, I better go to the chiropractor, but I want to go in and I want to get out, I don't want to go 3 weeks, that kind of thing. But again, you're kind of opening up my eyes in the sense of like, oh, you know what, this needs to be a little bit more.
It's more of that communication,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Of figuring out what's going on.
Exactly.
Good timing.
Sorry. yeah.
Good timing.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
So why, so you probably already answered this question a little bit, but why Rapid City for your practice?
So my wife originally grew up here. Her folks moved here from Kimball, went through the flood, moved their house into town, just kind of built a home. And my wife just loved the atmosphere. She's got a good culture in her family. They're very tight. They're good at communicating. Just a happy family. And we just wanted to be close because we knew we were going to be raising kids. My folks live out in Nebraska, out in the Sandhills. They're kind of, for lack of words, they're middle of nowhere. It's beautiful out there. It was a better opportunity for us here over there. I love it. That's where my roots are. We've been there for 5 generations. My kids are the 6th or 7th generation on that place. We've been there since 1905 or 3.
Wow.
So it's got a lot of roots to me. But Rapid's it's a beautiful town. It's got some older, kind of feng shui to it, which I like. It's got a great community. People love living here. We're huge outdoorsmen, so we bike, we hike, we backpack, we hunt, we fish. We're outside all the time. So I don't know where you can live where you have this much space to do whatever you want. So we love it here. The community's great. Like I said, a lot of my practice is from out of town, so I don't really rely on Rapid City, area for my client base. But it's a good place to live. So
What are some of the challenges of business in Rapid City?
I'm not too high on challenges. I think if we looked at anything, it'd probably go back to the word infrastructure. That would be a challenge for the economic flow of this town. Obviously, geographically, it has its challenges with limitations to roads and utilities and build out. Its ability to replace infrastructure at a timely manner. We lack some workforce in order to get new roads and have it done right in a timely manner. So there's some things that slow, I would say, the economic growth of the town. But I think there's a lot of good individuals in this town that are just like you, going out, promoting, looking at it, talking about it, trying to figure it out, seeing how we can create a better workforce, bring in better things. Like for me, I'd love to see Whole Foods here in town. I would like to see some better healthy options for our population. I don't think that eating at Walmart every day in the frozen in the middle aisles, that's going to be their best choice.
Right.
Longevity-wise, we just talked about how food is our medicine, food is our poison. So when we're looking for health, you're not going to find it on the inner aisles. So having that availability would be really great. We have Sam's Club, which is very good. We get a lot of some of the organic fruits and veggies out there. We've got some other local shopping here in town that we utilize as well. So it's there. You gotta go find it. It's not readily available.
Right.
I think that'd be huge for this town. If we
Yeah,
had some better
my wife would
restaurants.
appreciate that as well with all of her allergies that she's got going on. We went to her sister who lives in Montana to a Costco, and the Costco's got a lot more options.
Way more.
Than Sam's Club does. So we actually went and stocked up with a bunch of stuff there and brought it home. But whether or not we actually get a Costco
like
or not,
for organics, huh?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's probably been the biggest challenge for most of my Oregon, Washington, and California patients that have moved here in the last 2 to 3 years, is that they were like, they'll have a Costco, we'll make it. I know we're out in the middle of nowhere, but we'll make it. And they're just scratching their heads going, where do I buy this stuff, Nick? So I'm helping them trying to navigate where they can find healthy food choices. There are some local growers that we utilize.
Yeah, a lot of that right there, aside from bread root, is also, the farmers, and there's a bunch of different farmers markets, and there's also a bunch of different Facebook pages now with farm to table type options. Obviously, it's going to be a little more spendy, but it's local, it's real.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm the same way because I'm a vegetarian. And you don't say vegetarian in like St. Ange or Belfouche or anything like that.
No. No.
No, but it is like Sprouts or Whole Foods and bread root. I'd love to go there, but it would be nice to have that bigger variety in our area. So, but I think our population should be there by now because I checked about 10 years ago and they're like, no, your population's not big enough yet.
It's all about population and also average income.
Workforce. Yeah, we need
all that puts together.
Yeah, all
as
those
far as
things
their rules.
create their calculation of how. I don't see any. I mean, I'd love to see a Trader Joe's
we
here
don't
in
have
town.
the income for that.
Right, just like boom, that would be huge. Just the health potential for our town would be exponential to be able to go get that type of quality of food. So, and it's not that far away. And we travel to Fort Collins.
Yeah.
I mean, we're willing to drive to get that food.
Right,
so.
right.
Yeah, same way on that side, but yeah, like I said, there's a lot of more, like I said, new things that I guess I didn't think about with the chiropractic industry, in a sense. I guess you shouldn't call it an industry, but.
It is. It's one of the lines of physical medicine.
Yeah.
I kind of lump it all together. There's always turf wars in every field, right?
Yeah.
So many will say, PTs and chiros don't get along, and I just aim to totally disagree. I'm like, they're the same, and they're like, how could that be the same? Like, we're both in physical medicine. We do the exact same thing. Well, we stretch the muscle. No, you break the muscle. No, we stretch it. No, you break it, right? So you tear it, you break it loose so it can stretch and signal to the brain to have that adaptation. Same thing, right? I'm moving a joint, I'm freeing it up, I'm breaking that adhesion loose, I'm creating mobility within that segment, but I just had a neuroplastic event to the brain to have an adaptation. Same thing. It's tomato.
Yeah.
We're all trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, and it seems like in Rapid City, we have a number of people that are okay with being not either or, but in kind of in that space. Well, whatever works, and there's a space for both, I guess. Shall we say.
Absolutely. Well, interesting enough, South Dakota is the highest utilization state in the U.S. For chiropractic care.
Really? Interesting.
Per capita, we use chiropractic here in South Dakota more than any other state. And it there's a lot to break down with that statement. Why? Right, that's the first question. Where do they go? What experiences have they had? And why do they make that choice over, whatever you want to say, Western medicine?
Right.
Why do they make that choice? So there's a lot of information to break down in our standard of care in our medical model currently. Whether you want to say lack thereof, or distrust, or lack of results, or whatever it may be. But there has to be a shift in order to push, healthcare in general as a lump into more of different demographics. So I kind of find that interesting. It was one of my reasons to move to South Dakota. Was utilization rate was high, and that, for most
From a business sense,
chiropractors,
that makes sense.
they have a good practice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of chiros here in South Dakota.
Yeah.
There is. But like you said, a lot of yours people come from our
Sure.
rural, and it's,
Yeah.
and so it's
And
not
I always give them a
just-
hard time. I'm like, you just drove past 70 chiropractors to get here. You drove 2.5, 3 hours to get here. Why?
Well,
Yeah.
I get
And
that
so
word of mouth.
they're making a choice based on what they need. So
Right, and where they feel like they can get the results that they're happy with,
Mm-hmm.
Which our family can attest to as well. That's why we're still coming, because we had that
By those
results.
Yep.
Yeah.
we always say people vote with their feet.
They do. Oh yeah, print ads, that
Yeah,
thing. It's all,
they're
comes
either
down to word of
they're either
mouth.
there
Yep.
or they're gone.
Yeah.
And you got to have a bigger back door than your front door.
Yeah.
Because you want to be able to have flow. You want people to make the choice that they want to make. Because they, like I said, they vote with your feet. If you strangle them to death and try to make them do, diet, exercise, nutrition, it's just exhausting.
Yeah, there's no way to make people do
No.
that kind of thing. It has
But
to
if
be
you
their
can,
choice.
if you can show the why,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly.
then it's like boom, it makes sense.
Well, you talk about, like I said, because of the, the gut stuff and, so much heartburn and that kind of thing. It's like my husband came up with oh yeah, heartburn. It's like, I should have him come into you because, like I said, those little things you
Yeah,
don't think
gut
of.
brain. Yeah, gut
Yeah.
brain. And there's a lot of misinformation out there too. No different than drink alkaline water. That's gonna, fix your gut problem because you have an acidic issue. Well, what happens when you dump something alkaline in something that should be acidic? What does it do?
Yeah.
It makes it more acidic. so you're dumping all this alkaline stuff in you because you read it on Dr. Oz, and all of a sudden you're going, man, I'm worse off now than I was. Why? It just misinformation,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Nick. We appreciate you coming and talking with us. We can sense your passion, and
Oh, yeah.
we've got a lot of good sound bites and information here. So hopefully people will listen and enjoy this episode.
Hey, thanks, guys. Never hesitate to reach out to your local chiropractic physician for questions and answers. There's a lot of great information that we share with colleagues, and as a profession, we're growing. We're trying to be more adaptive and communicate better with our patients. We're trying to create a standard of care in chiropractic so we can have similar experiences everywhere we go. And it just helps elevate the profession because it is a very young profession. It started in 1895 and it hasn't been around that long.
Comparatively,
So
yeah.
we're learning, we're trying to grow, we're trying to meet people where they need us and be helpful. So.
Awesome.
I hope you enjoyed that story as much as we did.
We'll put all the contact information of every business in the show notes or the description below. Be sure to check them out and support our local small businesses.